Robin Hood Radio presents AgriCulture from Tukerna Farms. Here's Mark Scherzer.
October 12th, 2018, a month past Peter's death, seems an appropriate point to try to turn attention away from recalling the man who envisioned and impelled the development of the farm, and to look forward to what comes next. Don't misunderstand. I'd like nothing more than to spend the next 6 months away from the world I've known, reading, contemplating the meaning of things, crying over the loss of Peter without feeling self-conscious about it, recreating bonds with those I've been close to but never spent enough time with, and creating new bonds with new and more recent friends. Much as I'd love to do that, in the absence of a MacArthur Award or similar degree of support, it can't happen. Economic reality rules. The need to keep the engines of both the farm and my legal practice in continuous motion, lest they disintegrate entirely, dictate otherwise. I must address the question many of you have asked, how the farm will go on without its spiritual leader and resident manager, Peter. After the ordeal of Peter's week in the ICU, followed by a couple of days with his son, Perry, accepting the actuality of his death, and a weekend alone on the farm, I realized I had to come to terms quickly with the farm's future shape. Our farmhand, who stepped in so generously to help keep the farm operating the last year, is wonderful, but the farm can't reasonably continue to sustain a salary at our scale of production. Small-scale farming is something we know that can only be sustainably done by the farmer, him or herself, usually with a healthy dose of outside income. And keeping animals without having someone constantly present on the farm is, in my view, an invitation to disaster. Somehow, sitting in the garden that lone first weekend, a possible solution came to me. My sister had several times over the year urged me to invite her youngest son, Troy Spindler, and his girlfriend, Victoria Cox, to intern on the farm. They were both interested in farming, she said, and would love to do it. Peter was disinclined. In part, his reluctance came from having been burned so many times bringing on students who were, quote, interested in agriculture, unquote, in a theoretical way, but had no idea of, nor dedication to, the work involved. He also liked his privacy and didn't want to share our house with anyone else. But as time went on, the seriousness of Troy and Victoria's interest became clearer, and when Peter died, the privacy imperative became far less an issue. It occurred to me that with free land and housing, an agricultural product in the hands of an energetic young couple might actually stand some prospect of success. I invited them up to visit from their home in North Carolina the following weekend to explore the possibilities. I was surprised and thrilled by their enthusiastic response. They had, it seemed, dreamed of farming, but despaired of doing it until much later in life, needing to save enough money to buy a place first. Here was a chance. And they came, they saw, and they decided it was a chance they couldn't pass up. For my part, friends had told me not to make any major life decisions for at least 6 months, but I didn't feel the resolution could be postponed. Once I realized how personally comfortable I was spending time with them, the logic of the situation seemed too obvious. We will be housemates, and they will be farmers. Victoria has already arrived, and Troy will join her at the end of his current contract to move the farm to its next iteration. So let me introduce them. Troy, a native of Pittsburgh, and Victoria from Gatlinburg, Tennessee, met as undergraduates at Oberlin College in Ohio, where they were lab partners. Victoria, appropriately for someone who reads voraciously and has been an enthusiast about nature, the natural world, her entire conscious life, double majored in English and environmental studies, with a minor in religion. Troy majored in biology with a minor in chemistry and has since gone on to earn an MA in bioethics and public policy at Duke University, where he struggled to inject issues related to food into their aggressively medical curriculum. Both Victoria and Troy grew up in households with vegetable gardens, but their interest in growing food has been evident in much of their later activity. During college, Victoria interned for 2 summers at George Jones Memorial Farm at Oberlin, where she enjoyed driving a front loader without permission. She did all manner of agricultural labor, but with a focus on integrated pest management. After graduation, she worked as an environmental educator with the Student Conservation Association in New York City, teaching everyone who stumbled down the piers about the Hudson River estuary system, among other things. She spent a year in the Golden Gate area north of San Francisco doing habitat restoration and propagating native plants, a tough task in the driest year there in over a century. And following that, she took a job doing research for North Carolina State University's horticulture department, where she helped run research projects on everything from cucumber yields to the sweetness of watermelons. Victoria and Troy together have also done seasonal gigs over the last 3 years for the NEON Project, funded by the National Science Foundation, a nationwide ecological monitoring project that collects data about every level of the ecosystem and makes it publicly available for research. Troy's focus was trapping small mammals, beetles, and mosquitoes to measure their populations. I told them I could offer an ample mosquito supply here. Victoria did biodiversity surveys, leaf phenology, which measures the quantity of leaves and their color over time in locally dominant tree forms, vegetation structure, and nearly anything else measurable on a given shrub or seedling. She also climbed NEON's multi-story flux towers to measure atmospheric carbon, water, and other substances. In addition to his small mammal trapping with NEON, Troy has also along the way managed the care of laboratory possums at Oberlin. Since last February, he's worked for the state of North Carolina Department of Agriculture to test samples submitted by farmers who need analyses done to address problems or measure success. The samples are primarily of soil, but also of leaves, hog waste, produce, and other biological substances. There's much still to be worked out on the business side of the farm and the arrangement between us, but as you can see, Victoria and Troy are far more qualified at their tender age of 27 to be farmers than Peter, the English professor, theater director, kilim dealer, etc., and me, the entirely urban lawyer, were when we bought the farm at the ages of 63 and 49, respectively. The world turns. Phoenixes arise from the ashes. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Of all the modern American cliches about moving on to the next stage, one that Peter and I both always agreed was among the least meaningful was the desire expressed by so many to find closure. I always perceived that people said they wanted closure only when they wanted to escape the uncomfortable consequences of having screwed up. The equivalent of politicians or business moguls who, facing ignominy, claim to be retiring because they wanted to spend more time with their families. I think Peter found the concept of closure ridiculous because of his fundamental belief that history always stays with us and shapes us. It's why he never let anyone forget any ridiculous thing they ever did 30, 40, or 50 years after the fact. Looking to the next chapter of the farm, I can say with some assurance that Peter was right. I am sure that Turkana Farms will be growing different things in different ways and with somewhat different goals as Troy and Victoria find their way through the challenges of being farmers. But at the same time, the structure that Peter erected, the spirit he infused, and a certain basic direction are imprinted on the living soul of the place. Things may move forward, but I'm convinced there will never be closure. Please be assured we're staying in business. The porch door is, as ever, unlocked.
Mark Scherzer of Turkana Farms, specializing in heritage breeds of livestock on their 40-acre farm in Germantown, New York. Mark presides over his law firm, Mark Scherzer Law Office, which specializes in health law, also in the Wall Street area. TurkanaFarms.com. Their email, farm@turkanafarms.com or 518-537-3815.